Last Chance to See by Harris Brooker, read to you by the author himself. My name is Wilda Brown. I'm 33 years old and I once lived in East London. Ironically, my name means one who dwells in the forest, yet I lived in a city. An urban forest, I suppose. I hated it. Another thing you should know about me is that I have Stargardt's disease, which means my eyesight will get progressively worse and I'll go blind eventually. The blurring started when I was 17. When I was 20, the blind spots started appearing. I can see things if they're on the periphery, but right in the middle I just see a dark spot, like a blemish in a photo. My partner John, God bless him, has been my husband for a decade and supported me in my darkest hours. He's that kind of person. It's why he's such a well-regarded teacher at the Langdon Academy. One time, during my direst despair, I summoned John to my bedroom. He brought me a nut roast and a glass of wine, and I said to him, "John, I'm fed up with the traffic that screams past us all the time. I'm fed up with the tenement blocks and those damn kids that loiter about drinking beer every other night. I want to go somewhere where there's trees and birds singing. Somewhere wild. Do you have any ideas?" He sat down on the bed and said, "I know a guy from Scotland who has a house in Loch. I could ask him if we could borrow it. He's gone to Greece for his summer holidays this year. Would you like to go to Scotland?" I liked the sound of that. Yes, please. When we went to Scotland, this cabin was all I'd ever dreamed. It was roomy, wooden, and overlooked the vastness of Loch. We went for plenty of walks in the nearby pine forests, though John had to hold my arm to prevent me from tripping. One night we went to a hide to look at badgers and pine martens, denizens of the forest, drawn to food left out for them by our guide. They came so close, even I was able to count their hairs and look them in the eye. We were out walking one afternoon when we bumped into a local ranger. If he noticed that I was different, he didn't show it. He seemed nice enough, but a little on the quiet side. We spoke about the weather, the hill forecast, and about the wildlife we'd seen. John spoke about how wild this place was, wilder than anything he'd ever known. Something changed in the ranger just then. I don't know if he'd had a bad day or what. He just went into a rant. "Scotland is not as wild as people think," he said. "Most people that come here don't realise how managed this place is. Granted, we do have some of the best habitats left in Britain, but even they are managed. I know this because I pulled some trees down with a winch earlier today. We do it to make deadwood, and deadwood is good for the little invertebrates of the forest. Once upon a time, animals like wild boar would have done something similar. Now that they're gone, we have to do it. I think our work would be much easier and cost so much less if we brought the animals we've lost back into our forests. You know, there's one way in which humans differ from all other animals. It's not our ability to build things or come up with clever new ideas. It's something much worse. Want to know what it is?" John nodded. "Humans have to be paid. The wild boar rummages through the vegetation because it wants to eat. The bison rubs itself against the tree because it wants to scratch an itch. It just so happens that those actions are beneficial for the forest. Humans know full well what benefits the forest. If it were up to me, I would introduce them all. But others don't want that. So we do it. But humans have to be paid. And even when they are, they can't be out there all the time the way these animals can." The ranger eventually finished his rant and bid us a good day. I remembered John's reaction. "Pessimistic fellow, isn't he?" he said to me afterwards. "But what did he mean by that?" I asked him. I felt the same way John did, but I wanted to comprehend what had just happened. "I really don't know," said John. We enjoyed our time in Scotland, no doubt about it. We saw so much, I had to squint hard at those letters. It was frustratingly slow, but I persisted. I read about its time in the Ice Age, covered in glaciers and ice miles deep, with animals such as elk, wild boar, bison, wolves, bears, lynxes, even mammoths. The climate had cooled and forests grew up and hunter-gatherers moved in. I skipped through much of the earlier periods, past the farming periods, through the Picts and the Romans, through Kenneth MacAlpin, through William Wallace and his quest for independence, through the 1300s, the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1600s, until I came to the 1700s. In particular, 1707, the Union of Parliaments, The Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland became one, the United Kingdom. I read something about the government crushing some people called the Jacobites. 1745 that was. The clan system was abandoned. People were banned from wearing tartan. From 1750 to 1850, there was something called the Highland Clearances. People were being thrown off the land to make way for sheep. For sheep, I thought. Stupid. I got to a passage on Queen Victoria. She'd set up the Balmoral estate for shooting. All this empty space was now available for big landowners like her to go shooting. It seemed as if others bought into the idea. I skimmed through the 19th century. Queen Victoria dies, 1901. The years on from that seemed uneventful. Then there was the First World War, with huge stocks of timber cut down for the war effort. After the war, new trees were introduced to make up the losses. Some American species like Sitka spruce, especially that one. After the war, new trees were introduced to make up the losses. Some American species like Sitka spruce, especially that one. I cast my mind back to the landscapes John drove me through. I had certainly seen dense forests. I thought I had seen some diggers. Maybe my vision was deceiving me that day. I cast my mind back to the landscapes John drove me through. I had certainly seen dense forests. I thought I had seen some diggers. Maybe my vision was deceiving me that day. Could they just have been plantations made up with those foreign trees? I broke off from there, not being able to read any more. 6 hours had passed and it was nearly 4 a.m. John was fast asleep. I finally slept myself, but not for long. As we were having breakfast, John looked at me as if noticing something was different. "Is everything okay, Wilda?" he asked, in his usual caring tone. "It all makes sense," I said. "What does?" "What that ranger said." John stared. "Have you been thinking about him all this time? Is that why you haven't slept?" "Yes," I said. "I now know why. He's right. Scotland is managed. The Highland clearances threw people off the land. There's then room to have big shooting estates. The First World War happens and our forests are lost and replaced by foreign trees just before the Second. Only 1 or 2% of the native woodland of Scotland is still alive. What we have is managed, not wild. Don't you see?" "I don't see, Wilda," John said. "I don't understand what you're talking about. Listen, forget about him. He doesn't know what he's talking about." "But he's a ranger, John," I said. "I think he knows better than any of us." John did not seem to know how to respond to that. "Could we see somewhere wild? Truly wild?" I asked him. "Where?" John asked, bewildered. I had already thought about it. "Here." I passed him my phone, and on it was the website for the Banff National Park. Canada. "Wilda, dear," said John, "I love you very much. I love you more than anything else. But this is unreasonable. I don't have the time, and we've set aside the fortnight in October to visit my family in Norfolk. I haven't seen them for months. My mum has been looking forward to it for ages. She's got dementia. Her memory's going. Why don't we take them there too?" I said pleadingly. John had his head in his hands, pushing his brown hair into a mountain. "No, not this time. I'm sorry." "But John, my vision. I want to see a wild place before it goes. A real one." "We went to Scotland, dear," said John. "We did. I was shaking my head. "Did you listen to a word I just said?" "Did you listen to a word I just said?" John said angrily. "We're not going to Canada. We're going to Norfolk to see my mother." "Take her with us," I pleaded. "No, she can't manage the journey. She's 83. "Yes, she can," I retorted. "Take her with us. Take them all with us." "Listen, Wilda, I can't do it. My mother can't do it. Do you understand? You're not the only one who's losing something." That was too much. My vision blurred even more with the buckets of tears streaming from my eyes. I couldn't see anything now. Not even John. I felt his arms around me. "I didn't mean that," said John. "I'm sorry. Get away from me," I snapped. "Don't touch me." I felt his touch jerk away from me. "I'm going upstairs." I got up and made a move to leave. John was there in an instant. I felt his arm around my shoulder. It was automatic any time I needed to go somewhere. "I can handle this myself," I said sharply. He left me be. I climbed the stairs, seeing nothing. I lay in bed for several hours. I heard the door open. I let him sit next to me. "Hi, darling," he said. He put his arm around me. I let him do that. "Are you okay to talk?" I sniffed. "I suppose." "I've been talking to my mother on the phone." "What did she say?" John sighed. "I told her what you wanted to do." "And?" "She wasn't happy. She argued with me. But she's backed down, so congratulations. We're going to Canada." "Thank you, John. We've got 2 weeks to prepare. I'll get the tickets sorted and a place to stay. It'll just be the two of us." I was excited. Over the weeks, I packed and read up as much as I could. It sounded like everything I'd ever wanted. It sounded like that old version of Scotland I'd read about. We flew from London Heathrow to Calgary, just for ourselves. The blurry spots in the centre of my vision seemed to have expanded. I didn't like that. But it didn't stop me appreciating the scenery. There was mile upon mile of forests, mountains and lakes. It was extensive. I was spellbound. Some elk were grazing by the roadside. My periphery just managed to catch them. Huge, brown, baggy things with big antlers. To my surprise, instead of a hotel, John had gotten us a cabin on the outskirts of Banff, with its back to a forested mountain and a view out towards a lake. I loved the interior, with its wooden walls and log fire. Myself and John claimed an upstairs bedroom. I really enjoyed myself. Our bedroom had a balcony where I could look at the tree canopy and the mountain it covered. I could hear the birds singing. What they were I didn't know. At night there were owls hooting and something else, something far more evocative. I thought I was imagining it at first. I thought it was someone's dog that was doing the howling, but it sounded deeper. More howls answered, all piercingly loud, rising higher. My heart stopped. I was breathless. I wanted to wake John and show him, but I sat there, knowing my night vision was poor. I might trip on the way over to our bed, especially if I was hasty. Besides, he might not have appreciated being woken. So I sat there, listening to the song of the Rockies. I slept with it. I slept with it for many more nights, until one morning I woke up and my vision had changed. No longer could I see things, even peripherally, save in the bottom right-hand corner. I could feel John's sorrow for me. His grief was palpable. "I want to go outside," I said loudly. "It's my last chance to see the world around me. I want to be in nature, where my real place is. Help me outside, and I will demand nothing more from you ever again." He guided me outside. In the corners of my eyes, the mountains and the trees were disappearing. The birds were still singing, louder than before. I looked at John, one last time. "Thank you, my love." Then he vanished. I fell into despair. I started to cry uncontrollably. I felt John comforting me. Days passed and I didn't leave my room. I sank into the darkest place. Yet in some ways I felt free. It's happened now. I need not fear the loss any more. "Wilda, darling," John came to me later one night. "I've been thinking. I know how much this place means to you, so I've got some good news." "What good news?" I dared not expect too much, not after everything I'd made him do for me, especially talking him out of seeing his mother slowly succumbing to dementia. "How would you feel if we moved here permanently?" I couldn't believe it. I was chatting to someone when I was out shopping. He's a teacher as well. He talked about wanting to be a teacher in England. I told him we could swap places and have an exchange. He liked that idea. "Sounds amazing," I said breathlessly. "I can't guarantee we would have this place," said John. "I can't guarantee we'd be able to stay here. We'll have to go home in the meantime. It will take years in any case, but if we're successful, you can listen to the birds and the wolves for the rest of your life, if you like." I was over the moon. I hugged him. "Thank you, John. You really are my soulmate."